ARs have always been one of the most versatile weapons to use in Warzone, but with all the new Vanguard guns, there are now 32 different options to choose from. So which are the best? Here are the top 5 Warzone assault rifles that you need to use.
Who's that Pokemon?
Number 5, the STG 44. The STG 44 is the default Vanguard assault rifle and has remained one of the top picks for competitive players since it released. It holds its own as a top tier AR for a few reasons. For the most part, it's insanely versatile, being able to hold its own in both long range, mid range, and close range engagements, which is arguably what ARs are meant to do. Its recoil is pretty manageable, and with the right attachments can be almost completely eliminated. On top of that, its movement speed and aim down sight speed are still incredibly fast, still giving you an edge at close range. Given the variety of attachment options, the STG can be built for just about anything, but here are my 2 recommended loadouts. The first loadout is a more long-range build. For muzzle, you'll want the MX silencer so you can silence your weapon without sacrificing damage range. For barrel, you're going to want the VDD 760mm 05B to maximize your range and accuracy. I use the G16 2.5x scope for the best balance between long and short range. For the stock, the VDD 34S weighted helps eliminate recoil and increase accuracy. You'll also want the M1941 hand stop on your underbarrel to further mitigate recoil. The 7.62 Gorenko 50 round mags will let you stay in the fight for longer without reloading, and the lengthened ammunition type provides greater bullet velocity for fighting at long range. Use the polymer grip to reduce recoil, and lastly, use the vital perk for additional damage and the fully loaded perk for the extra ammo. If you're wanting to run the STG as a close-range gun, you'll want to use the recoil booster to increase the fire rate. The VDD 320mm 02B barrel will make the gun faster for close-range engagements. Use the slate reflector for a slightly more accurate sight. You can also leave this off and just use the iron sights if you prefer. For a stock, you'll want to use the Krausnik S11S folding to boost your movement and sprint to fire speed. For underbarrel, use the Carver foregrip to help mitigate recoil and increase hipfire accuracy. Again, you'll want the 7.62 Gorenko 50 round mags and the hollow point ammo type. For grip, use the fabric grip to again boost the sight speed and hipfire accuracy, and again use the vital and fully loaded perks. The STG's versatility is what gains it a spot on this list, but it still gets outpaced by some of the other options, which is why I've placed it at number 5.
Who's that Pokemon?
Number 4, the AK-47. The AK-47 has been a very solid choice in pretty much every Call of Duty title, but the Cold War AK in particular is a cut above the rest. Despite its slow fire rate, its damage output is more than enough to compete with other ARs. It shines best as a close to mid-range gun, but can be used for long-range engagements in a pinch. Movement speed is quite a bit slower than some other options, but the sheer stopping power from this rifle more than makes up for it, in my opinion. Recoil in the AK might be a bit of a challenge for some players, which is why I tend to favor this gun for short-range engagements where accuracy doesn't matter quite as much. I've tried a few different loadouts for the AK and settled on this one as my favorite. For the muzzle, you'll want the GRU suppressor to silence your weapon and help with recoil control, all while helping the gun excel at longer ranges. I use the 18.2-inch takedown barrel to boost the range a bit more and again mitigate recoil without hurting the gun's mobility too much. For a laser, I equip the KGB target designator to again help with the damage range as well as increasing hipfire accuracy. For the underbarrel, use the bruiser grip to increase movement speed and hipfire accuracy, and finally throw on the Bakelite 60 round magazine for the extra mag size. The AK-47 definitely stands out as a top choice in Caldera, but just like the STG, it doesn't quite edge out some of the competition, so it's ranked at number 4. Real quick, if you like my content, please consider subscribing. That way you can make sure that you never miss a video.
Who's that Pokemon?
Number 3, Cooper Carbine. Ever since it released at the beginning of Vanguard Season 1, the Cooper Carbine has dominated as one of the best ARs in the game. And despite a heavy nerf, it still manages to remain one of the best options for a mid-range assault rifle. The fire rate is one of the fastest among ARs, and on top of that, it has virtually no recoil. Its mobility is also insanely good, even on par with some SMGs. Really, the only thing that the Cooper doesn't excel at is long ranges, as its bullet drop-off does make it considerably weaker than other AR options at this range. However, pairing this gun with a longer range weapon is a force to be reckoned with. For the loadout, you'll want to start with an MX silencer and the 22-inch Cooper custom barrel to maximize range and accuracy, increase fire rate, and silence the weapon. For the optic, I prefer the G16 2.5 times, but the slate reflector works just as good if you'd rather prioritize aim down sight speed over magnification. For the stock, use the Cooper 45W to help stabilize the weapon, and use the M3 Ready Grip for the underbarrel to decrease the aim down sight speed and sprint to fire time. Most loadouts I've seen use the 9mm 60 round drums, but I prefer the 30 caliber Carbine 45 round mags. I find the extra damage from the larger caliber to be a game changer, and 45 rounds are more than enough to wipe a full squad. But if you are worried about ammo capacity, the 9mm drums work fine. For ammo, I equip lengthened for the extra bullet velocity, and I use the polymer rear grip to further reduce recoil. Lastly, for perks, you'll want to equip brace to mitigate recoil even further, and fully loaded for the extra starting ammo. The Cooper Carbine sits firmly in the middle of my top 5, the main reason being its weakness at range. Personally, I prefer ARs for mid to long range and SMGs for close range. But if you are a fan of the Cooper, you can definitely still get far with it, which is why I've ranked it at number 3.
Who's that Pokemon?
Number 2, C58. Arguably one of Cold War's most underrated rifles, the C58 shines as a long-range beast in Warzone. It balances fire rate and damage insanely well, boasting one of the best TTKs for a long-range AR. Its mobility isn't the best compared to other options, but that's easily countered by running this gun alongside an SMG. For a long-range assault rifle, it has pretty much everything you could ask for. Decent fire rate, phenomenal damage, laser accuracy, and great bullet velocity. In terms of recoil control, it does have a bit of a kick, but it's pretty easily managed once you get used to it. To start, I always run the agency suppressor for the sound suppression, recoil control, and damage range benefits. For the barrel, use the 18.5-inch Task Force to again boost damage range and mitigate recoil, while also helping with bullet velocity. You'll want to use the Field Agent grip on your underbarrel to add even more recoil control, since it is one of this gun's bigger weaknesses. For optic, I use the axial arms 3 times. And lastly, use the Stanag 55 round drum for that extra ammo capacity. The C58 is definitely one of my favorite ARs to use right now, which is why I've placed it at number 2, but it still gets edged out by the very last gun on this list. Now before I tell you the number 1 assault rifle to use in Warzone right now, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Also, comment down below your go-to AR to use in Warzone, and if it's not on this list, I'll review it and post a video. And finally, without any further ado, the number 1 assault rifle in Warzone right now.
Who's that Pokemon?
Number 1, the FARA 83. That's right, the #1 AR in Warzone right now is none other than the FARA 83. Like all the other guns on this list, this gun balances pretty much everything that an AR needs to. It has an excellent damage range, no recoil whatsoever, solid damage, and a great mag size. The FARA has everything it needs to be the perfect long-range AR for dominating Warzone, and it does just that. The only setback the FARA has is its lack of mobility, but that's easily solved by pairing it with an SMG and using the amped perk. The loadout for this is pretty similar to the loadout for the C58. You'll want the GRU suppressor for the damage range, sound suppression, and recoil control. For barrel, use the 18.7-inch Spetsnaz RPK barrel to again boost damage range and support recoil control. As always, use the axial arms 3x optic, and for the underbarrel, use the Spetsnaz grip for further recoil control. And lastly, equip the VDV 60 round fast mag for mag capacity and fast reload speed. Well, there you have it. Now you know the top 5 best assault rifles to use in Warzone. And luckily, you have plenty of time to use them, as Activision isn't going to be nerfing these anytime soon. Wait,